Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are strapping in for, well, the ultimate shortcut into the human body's other great regulatory engine, the endocrine system.
That's right. We've basically synthesized a massive stack of source material, pretty much an entire textbook chapter, to give you the comprehensive view.
Yeah, from the brain's command center right down to the single-cell receptor. We're covering it all.
And it's an absolutely essential deep dive, I think, because we often focus so much on the nervous system, the lightning-fast electrical signals.
Exactly. That system is undeniably rapid, incredibly specific, point to point.
But the body needs more than just, let's say, instant text messages. That speed is crucial, but it's not the whole story.
Precisely. Our neural system is quick, but its effects are pretty short-lived. And critically, nerve fibers don't actually reach every single one of the trillions of cells in the body.
Right, they just can't. So you need another system, one that provides continuous, more general, and really widespread chemical regulation.
And that's the gap the endocrine system fills so perfectly. The sources are really clear on this.
Yeah.
The nervous and endocrine systems, they don't work in isolation.
Not at all. They jointly coordinate and regulate basically all our physiological functions. It's a partnership.
A partnership that requires a chemical language.
Yeah.
And that brings us right to defining the endocrine system itself.
Okay, so classically, we thought of it as just the ductless glands, the ones lacking ducts. And these secrete chemical messengers, hormones, directly into the bloodstream. Then they're transported to distant target organs. That was the old view.
That classical definition, it's a decent starting point for sure. But the current scientific understanding, that's the real key insight we want you, the listener, to really grab onto today.
Absolutely. Because modern science defines hormones much more broadly. Think of them as non-nutrient chemicals that act as intercellular messengers and are produced only in trace amounts.
Right. That shift from distant target organ to intercellular messenger produced in trace amounts, that feels huge.
It is. It's revolutionary, really. It means the endocrine system is far more distributed than just, a list of the big-name glands.
So it covers way more molecules produced by tissues we wouldn't normally think of as endocrine glands.
Exactly. It expands the sheer scope of the body's internal chemical chatter enormously.
Which makes sense when you think about maintaining homeostasis, that internal balance. Simple organisms like invertebrates, they have basic systems.
Yeah, very rudimentary sometimes.
But our vertebrate system is incredibly complex. It involves these organized major glands we'll talk about, like the pituitary, but also these scattered, diffused, hormone-producing tissues.
Which we'll definitely get to later because they're fascinating in their own right.
So today, our mission is the grand tour. We're hitting the organized powerhouses that manage our metabolism, stress, growth, reproduction, the works.
Okay, let's dive in.
So moving into these core players, the sources list 8 major organized glands making up this network. You've got the pituitary, pineal, thyroid, adrenal, pancreas, parathyroid, thymus, and the gonads, so testes and ovary.
Quite a list. And presiding over this whole complex operation, the absolute conductor is the hypothalamus.
Right, the command center. It's strategically located in the basal part of the diencephalon. That's basically the floor of the forebrain.
And it's not just handling simple things like temperature or hunger, although it does those too. It regulates a huge spectrum of body functions.
And how does it do that? It uses these special groups of neurosecretory cells gathered into clusters called nuclei.
And these nuclei, they are the direct link. They bridge the neural world and the endocrine world. They produce 2 critical types of hormones that specifically control the manager gland below it, the pituitary.
Okay, so 2 types. What are they?
Well, first you have the releasing hormones. They do pretty much what they sound like.
Stimulate the pituitary to release its hormone.
Exactly. A perfect example is gonadotrophin-releasing hormone, GnRH. It commands the pituitary to synthesize and release key reproductive hormones, the gonadotrophins.
Makes sense. And the other type?
The inhibiting hormones. These put the brakes on pituitary secretion.
Like telling it to stop or slow down.
Precisely. A classic example here is somatostatin. It's also made in the hypothalamus, and it specifically inhibits the release of growth hormone, or GH, from the pituitary.
Okay, so the hypothalamus is sending go signals and stop signals down to the pituitary. How do those signals actually travel?
This is where the complexity really starts, and it's crucial. These hypothalamic hormones travel to the anterior pituitary, the front part, via a specialized portal circulatory system.
A portal system, like a dedicated mini blood vessel network.
Exactly, a vascular bridge just for this communication. But the posterior pituitary, the back part, that's completely different.
How so?
It's not regulated by hormones traveling in blood. It's under direct neural control from the hypothalamus.
Wow, okay. So two distinct methods of control for the two parts of the pituitary.
And that distinction is functionally critical. The hypothalamus uses its own nerve fibers to synthesize two specific hormones, oxytocin and vasopressin.
It makes them itself.
It makes them itself right up in the hypothalamus. Then it transports them axonally, basically like cargo ship down the length of the nerve fibers straight to the posterior pituitary.
For storage.
For storage and eventual release. So think of it this way. The anterior pituitary is the production factory, managed by signals delivered via blood vessels. The posterior pituitary is more like a storage warehouse, managed directly by signals sent down the wires, the nerves.
That separation allows for incredible nuance and control, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Which brings us neatly to the pituitary gland itself, the manager, often called the master gland because its influence is just so broad.
And where is it located again?
It sits in a small, very protective bony cavity in the skull called the sella turcica, and it's attached to the hypothalamus by that stalk we just mentioned.
Okay. And anatomically, you said it splits into two main sections.
That's right. You have the glandular adenohypophysis, which is the anterior part, and the neurohypophysis, the posterior part.
Let's break down the adenohypophysis first.
Okay. The adenohypophysis itself contains two parts. The pars distalis, that's what we usually mean by the anterior pituitary proper, and the pars intermedia.
And the pars distalis, that's the real factory floor, you said.
That's the powerhouse. It produces 6 major hormones. Count 'em. Growth hormone, GH, prolactin, PRL, thyroid-stimulating hormone, TSH, adrenocorticotropic hormone, ACTH, luteinizing hormone, LH, and follicle-stimulating hormone, FSH.
Wow. That is an incredible amount of management power coming from one tiny pea-sized gland.
It really is. Now, the pars intermedia is much smaller in humans, practically merged with the pars distalis. It secretes melanocyte-stimulating hormone, MSH.
Which affects skin pigmentation.
Primarily, yes. But let's focus on those 6 key players from the pars distalis. Notice something interesting. 3 of them, TSH, ACTH, and the gonadotrophins, LH and FSH, are what we call trophic hormones.
Trophic, meaning they act on other endocrine glands.
Precisely. They command other glands downstream, the thyroid, the adrenal cortex, the gonads, to do their jobs.
So it's like a chain of command. Hypothalamus tells pituitary, pituitary tells thyroid.
Exactly. That idea of a trophic cascade is really important. You might wonder, why not just have the hypothalamus talk directly to the thyroid?
Yeah, why the middleman?
Well, it's about amplification and sustained control. The pituitary acts as a crucial intermediate. It takes a small, maybe intermittent signal from the hypothalamus and turns it into a larger, more sustained command.
Ah, keeping the peripheral gland working effectively over time.
Right. And it also provides a vital point for feedback loops, which are essential for keeping everything in balance.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, what about the other side, the neurohypophysis?
The neurohypophysis, or posterior pituitary, or pars nervosa, remember, this is the storage unit. It doesn't make hormones itself.
Right, it just stores and releases the two made in the hypothalamus.
Correct. Oxytocin and vasopressin, also known as antidiuretic hormone, or ADH.
Let's maybe talk about growth hormone first, GH. Its clinical relevance really highlights the power of these signals.
Definitely. If you have oversecretion of GH during childhood, it stimulates abnormal growth, resulting in gigantism.
And the opposite, low secretion.
Low secretion leads to stunted growth, a condition called pituitary dwarfism.
But the story gets, well, darker in adults, doesn't it? Excess GH later in life.
Yes. Excess GH secretion, say, in middle age, causes acromegaly. This isn't about getting taller. The body's architecture fundamentally shifts.
How so?
Bones, particularly in the hands, feet, and face, start to enlarge. It leads to severe disfigurement over time.
And you mentioned it's insidious.
Extremely. Because the growth is so slow, it's incredibly hard to diagnose early. Often it's only detected when family members compare the person's current appearance to old photographs and notice this profound change in facial features, the jaw, the brow.
That's chilling and left unchecked.
The complications are severe cardiovascular issues, diabetes, and it often leads to premature death. It really underscores how critical these trace amounts of hormones are.
Absolutely. A powerful example.
Yeah.
Okay, moving through the anterior pituitary list. Prolactin or PRL?
PRL handles the growth of mammary glands and, crucially, the formation of milk after childbirth.
Got it. And TSH and ACTH we mentioned, those are trophic, commanding the thyroid and the adrenal cortex, respectively.
Right. They stimulate those glands to produce their own hormones.
Then we have the gonadotrophins. LH and FSH. They stimulate the gonads, the testes, and ovaries.
Yep. In males, LH luteinizing hormones stimulate specific cells in the testes, the Labig cells, to synthesize and secrete androgens, the main one being testosterone.
And FSH.
FSH, follicle-stimulating hormone, along with those androgens, works to regulate spermatogenesis, the production of sperm.
Okay. And in females, it's a bit more complex with the cycle, right?
It is. In females, LH triggers the key event, ovulation, the release of the mature egg from the follicle. It also maintains the life of the structure left behind, the corpus luteum.
And FSH in females.
FSH stimulates the initial growth and development of the ovarian follicles each cycle, getting the eggs ready. It's a beautifully coordinated dance between LH and FSH throughout the menstrual cycle.
It really is. Okay, let's cycle back to the two hormones released from the storage unit, the posterior pituitary. Oxytocin.
Oxytocin is the contraction specialist. It acts powerfully on smooth muscles.
Like during childbirth.
Exactly. It causes the vigorous contractions of the uterus needed during labor. And after birth, it's crucial for triggering milk ejection, the let-down reflex from the mammary glands.
Okay. And the other one stored there, vasopressin or ADH.
ADH, antidiuretic hormone. Its name tells you its job. It's the body's water conservation specialist.
How does it conserve water?
It acts mainly on the kidney, specifically the later parts of the tubules, the distal tubules. It stimulates the reabsorption of water and also electrolytes back into the body.
So it reduces water loss through urine.
Dramatically. That's why it's antidiuretic. It's absolutely critical for maintaining hydration.
And what happens if ADH isn't working properly? If synthesis or release is impaired?
Well, the kidneys lose their ability to conserve water. This leads to massive water loss, excessive urination, and severe dehydration.
Is that diabetes?
It's a type of diabetes, yes, but it's crucial to distinguish it. This condition is called diabetes insipidus.
Insipidus, okay. How is it different from the more common diabetes?
Diabetes insipidus is purely a failure of water conservation due to ADH problems. The more common diabetes mellitus, which we'll discuss later with the pancreas, is a failure of sugar regulation involving insulin. Totally different mechanisms despite the similar name.
Got it. Insipidus water, mellitus equals sugar. Very important distinction.
Very.
All right, moving on from the master manager, the pituitary, let's talk about the body's timekeeper, the pineal gland.
Tiny gland, big job. It's located on the dorsal side, the back side of the forebrain, and it secretes one major hormone, melatonin.
Melatonin, everyone associates that with sleep.
And for good reason. It plays a really crucial role in regulating our 24-hour or diurnal rhythm. That includes maintaining the normal cycle of sleep and wakefulness.
But it does more than just sleep-wake, right?
Oh, yes. It also helps regulate body temperature fluctuations throughout the day. And the sources emphasize its influence is actually much wider.
Like what?
It also seems to affect our overall metabolism, influence skin pigmentation to some extent, help regulate the timing of the menstrual cycle in females, and even plays a supportive role in our defense capability, our immune function.
Wow. So it's got these profound systemic effects we're probably still fully exploring.
I think that's fair to say, yes. Its full scope is still being researched.
Okay, next up. The true engine of our energy use and metabolic speed control the thyroid gland.
Ah, yes, the thyroid. It's that bilobe structure, sitting on either side of the trachea, the windpipe, connected by a narrow band called the isthmus.
And structurally?
It's built of these spherical units called follicles, surrounded by stromal tissues, and it's the follicular cells that synthesize the two main potent thyroid hormones, T4, which is thyroxine, and T3, triiodothyronine.
And the absolute essential ingredient for making these hormones is?
Non-negotiable. Iodine. You cannot make thyroid hormones without it.
Which explains why iodine deficiency in the diet is such a big problem globally?
Exactly. It's the direct cause of hypothyroidism, low thyroid function, and the resultant enlargement of the thyroid gland itself, which we call goiter.
And the effects of hypothyroidism, especially during development, are just devastating, aren't they?
Profound and heartbreaking. Deficiency during pregnancy causes defective development and maturation of the growing baby. This leads to a condition called cretinism.
What does cretinism involve?
It's characterized by severely stunted growth, significant mental retardation, often abnormal skin development, and potentially even deaf mutism.
It really underscores why ensuring adequate iodine nutrition, especially for expectant mothers, is a massive public health priority.
Absolutely critical. And even in adults, particularly adult women, low thyroid function, hypothyroidism, can cause irregular menstrual cycles and generally just slows the whole body down, fatigue, weight gain, feeling cold.
Okay, so that's deficiency. What about the opposite, an overactive thyroid?
That's hyperthyroidism. Often it's due to thyroid cancer or the development of nodules on the gland, causing hormone synthesis to ramp up to abnormally high levels.
Is there a specific disease name associated with that?
The most recognized form is exophthalmic goiter, also known as Graves' disease.
Exophthalmic, meaning the eyes.
Yes. This condition typically manifests with several key signs: an enlarged thyroid gland, goiter, protruding eyeballs, that's the exophthalmos, a significantly increased basal metabolic rate, BMR.
So they burn energy really fast.
Exactly. Which leads to noticeable weight loss, often despite increased appetite. They might also feel anxious, have tremors, and be intolerant to heat.
So functionally, wrapping up the thyroid's main job, what are T3 and T4 doing?
They are the primary regulators of the basal metabolic rate, or BMR. That's the body's baseline energy expenditure when at rest.
So like the body's idle speed.
That's a great analogy, yes. They also support the crucial process of red blood cell formation, help maintain water and electrolyte balance, and control the metabolism of carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. They really set the pace for the entire body.
But wait, the thyroid has another trick up its sleeve, right? Something related to calcium.
It does. We absolutely have to mention thyrocalcitonin, or TCT. This is a protein hormone also secreted by the thyroid gland.
And its job?
Its job is to actively decrease blood calcium levels. It works to pull calcium out of the blood, often depositing it into bone.
Which makes it a pivotal player in mineral balance and provides a perfect lead-in to its functional antagonist.
The parathyroid gland.
Exactly. Or rather, glands, plural.
Yes. Typically 4 tiny parathyroid glands located on the backside of the thyroid lobes. They secrete one crucial hormone, parathyroid hormone, or PTH.
And PTH is what type of hormone?
PTH is a peptide hormone. Its secretion isn't controlled by the pituitary, interestingly. It's regulated directly by the concentration of circulating calcium ions in the blood.
Okay, so it senses calcium levels directly. And what does it do?
PTH is a hypercalcemic hormone. Its job is the exact opposite of TCT. It works to increase blood calcium levels when they drop too low.
How does it raise calcium?
It has a 3-pronged approach, really. First, it stimulates bone resorption, basically. Demineralization, pulling stored calcium out of the bones and releasing it into the bloodstream.
Okay, taps into the reserves.
Second, it acts on the kidneys, stimulating the reabsorption of calcium ions by the renal tubules, preventing calcium from being lost in the urine.
Recycles it.
And third, it increases the absorption of calcium from digested food in the intestine, often by activating vitamin D.
Wow, very comprehensive. So PTH and TCT are working in this constant push-pull.
Perfect opposing harmony. PTH raises blood calcium, TCT lowers it. This dynamic duo is absolutely fundamental for maintaining the very tight calcium balance needed for nerve function, muscle contraction, blood clotting, and keeping our bones strong.
Incredible balance. Okay, the last gland in this sort of core regulatory group we're discussing now is the thymus.
Ah, the thymus.
Yeah.
It's a lobular structure located strategically between the lungs, just behind the sternum, over the heart. It secretes peptide hormones collectively called thymosins.
And the thymus is all about the immune system, right? Especially early in life.
Absolutely. It's ground zero for immune development. Thymosins are essential for the differentiation and maturation of T lymphocytes.
T cells.
T cells, exactly. These are the specialized white blood cells responsible for cell-mediated immunity, the part of the immune system that directly targets and kills infected cells, cancerous cells, or foreign tissues.
So really critical for defense.
Incredibly. Thymosins also promote the production of antibodies, which boosts the other arm of immunity, humoral immunity.
Now here's where the aging connection comes in, sadly. What happens to the thymus over time?
This is a really key point from the sources. The thymus dramatically degenerates, it shrinks in old age.
And the consequence?
The resulting decreased production of thymosins is thought to be a major reason for the weakened immune responses we commonly see in older individuals. They become more susceptible to infections and perhaps even certain cancers.
A clear biological link between this gland's decline and age-related immune decline.
It seems very likely, yes.
Okay. That wraps up our tour of that main regulatory axis, the sort of command and control center. Now, let's pivot and focus on the glands, dealing more with immediate survival sugar balance, and sexual differentiation.
Right, the heady hitters for homeostasis, the adrenals, the pancreas, and the gonads.
Let's kick off with the adrenal gland, the emergency responder. We have a pair of them.
Yes, one sitting like a little cap on top of each kidney. Structurally, it's fascinating because it's like two glands fused into one. You have the central part, the adrenal medulla, and the outer layer, the adrenal cortex. Fundamentally different origins and functions.
Let's start with the medulla, the inner part. That's the rapid response unit.
Absolutely. It secretes the catecholamines, adrenaline, also known as epinephrine, and noradrenaline, or norepinephrine.
The fight or flight hormones?
Exactly. These are the classic emergency hormones, the hormones of fight or flight. They are secreted incredibly rapidly in response to any kind of stressor, physical danger, fear, intense exercise, even just significant anxiety.
And the effects are immediate and body-wide, right? That feeling we all know.
Oh, yeah. Increased alertness, your pupils dilate, you get piloerection, the hairs on your skin stand up, goosebumps. Increased sweating. Yep. A major increase in heart rate and the strength of the heart's contractions, pumping more blood faster. Your respiration rate surges, getting more oxygen in.
And it mobilizes energy, too.
Massively. Adrenaline and noradrenaline stimulate the breakdown of stored glycogen in the liver and muscles. Glycogenolysis, the breakdown of fats, lipolysis, and even proteins, proteolysis.
All to flood the bloodstream with glucose and fatty acids.
Precisely. Providing readily available fuel for the muscles and brain for immediate, intense action. Adrenaline is the ultimate multitasking hormone for survival.
Okay, that's the medulla, fast, furious, life-saving. Now, the adrenal cortex, the outer layer. That's managing more long-term stuff.
Yes, it handles sustained stress responses and is absolutely vital for mineral and fluid balance. It's much more complex than the medulla, anatomically divided into 3 distinct layers.
And the function is segregated by layer. That seems important.
It is. You really need to grasp the 3 zones, starting from the outside and working in. The zona glomerulosa, outermost layer, primarily secretes mineralocorticoids.
Mineral.
Exactly.
Salt and water balance.
Exactly. Then the middle and usually thickest layer, the zona fasciculata, primarily secretes glucocorticoids.
Like glucose sugar.
You got it. And the innermost layer, the zona reticularis, secretes small amounts of androgenic steroids, sex hormones.
Okay, let's break those down. Glucocorticoids first, from the middle layer, dominated by cortisol.
Yes, cortisol is the main glucocorticoid in humans. Its primary role involves carbohydrate metabolism. It stimulates gluconeogenesis.
Making new glucose from non-carb sources like amino acids or fats.
Correct. It also stimulates lipolysis, breaking down fats, and proteolysis, breaking down proteins, while simultaneously inhibiting cellular uptake and utilization of amino acids. It basically ensures fuel availability during stress, often at the expense of tissue building.
So it's crucial for maintaining blood sugar during prolonged stress or fasting. What else does cortisol do?
It's also critical for maintaining normal cardiovascular function and kidney function. But perhaps its most well-known features, especially clinically, are its powerful anti-inflammatory reactions and its ability to actively suppress the immune response.
Ah, that's why synthetic versions, corticosteroids, are used so widely to treat inflammation, allergies, autoimmune diseases.
Precisely. It dials down the immune system's activity. Cortisol also stimulates red blood cell production. It's a real multitasker for long-term adaptation.
Okay, now the outer layer, zona glomerulosa and mineralocorticoids, managing water and electrolytes.
Yes, with aldosterone being the main player here. Aldosterone acts mainly at the renal tubules back in the kidney.
What's its specific command there?
It tells the tubules, reabsorb more sodium ions and water back into the body, and excrete more potassium ions and phosphate ions into the urine.
So hold on to salt and water, get rid of potassium.
In essence, yes. By doing this, aldosterone is absolutely essential for maintaining proper electrolyte balance, body fluid volume, osmotic pressure, and ultimately blood pressure. It keeps your internal salinity and pressure stable.
Vital functions. And finally, that inner layer, zona reticularis.
It secretes small amounts of androgenic steroids. These play a role, particularly during puberty, in the growth of axial hair, underarm, pubic hair, and some facial hair, contributing alongside the main gonadal hormones.
So a supporting role in sexual development. Now, what happens if the whole adrenal cortex fails? if it doesn't produce enough of these crucial corticoids?
Underproduction of adrenal cortex hormones leads to a serious condition known as Addison's disease.
What are the symptoms?
It severely alters carbohydrate metabolism, leading to acute weakness, extreme fatigue, loss of appetite, weight loss, low blood sugar, low blood pressure, and often a characteristic bronzing or darkening of the skin.
And it requires treatment.
Absolutely. Addison's requires lifelong hormone replacement therapy with glucocorticoids and often mineralocorticoids as well. It's fatal if untreated.
Okay, a critical gland indeed. Let's shift focus now to the pancreas, the glucose gatekeeper. You described it as a composite gland.
Yes, it's unique because it has both exocrine and endocrine functions. The exocrine part produces digestive enzymes, releasing them through ducts into the small intestine.
But we're interested in the endocrine part.
Right. The endocrine function is concentrated in small clusters of cells scattered throughout the pancreas called the islets of Langerhans.
How many of those are there?
About 1 to 2 million islets in a healthy pancreas, but interestingly, they only make up about 1 to 2% of the total pancreatic tissue mass. Tiny factories with a huge impact.
And within these islets, there are different cell types.
2 main ones we need to focus on, the I cells, alpha cells, and the beta cells.
Okay, what do the alpha cells make?
The I cells secrete glucagon. Glucagon is a peptide hormone. Its main job is to prevent your blood sugar from dropping too low. It's a potent hyperglycemic hormone.
Hyperglycemic, so it raises blood sugar.
Correct. It achieves this mainly by acting on liver cells, the hepatocytes. It stimulates them to break down stored glycogen back into glucose, glycogenolysis, and also to create new glucose from non-carbohydrate sources like amino acids, gluconeogenesis.
So it releases stored sugar and makes new sugar.
Exactly. It also tends to reduce the uptake of glucose by other cells, helping to keep glucose circulating in the bloodstream when levels are low.
Okay, and the beta cells, the pre-cells.
The abacells secrete insulin. Insulin is also a peptide hormone, and it's the direct functional antagonist to glucagon. Its role is regulation of glucose homeostasis by being hypoglycemic.
Hypoglycemia, so it lowers blood sugar.
Exactly. It actively decreases blood glucose levels, primarily after a meal when sugar levels rise.
How does insulin lower blood sugar?
It acts mainly on hepatocytes, liver cells, and adipocytes, fat cells, but also muscle cells, enhancing their uptake and utilization of glucose from the blood. It's often described as a key that unlocks the cell doors for glucose to enter rapidly.
Moves glucose out of the blood and into the cells for energy or storage.
Right. And inside the cells, particularly liver and muscle, it stimulates glycogenesis, the conversion of excess glucose into glycogen for storage.
So glucagon raises sugar, insulin lowers sugar. Another perfect antagonistic pair maintaining balance.
Absolutely. Exquisite balance, essential for keeping blood glucose within a very narrow, healthy range. But as we know, sometimes this system fails.
Right. If there's a deficiency in insulin production or if the body cells become resistant to insulin's effects.
And they get prolonged hyperglycemia, high blood sugar. And this leads to the complex metabolic disorder we know as diabetes mellitus.
And the symptoms here are quite different from diabetes insipidus.
Very different. With mellitus, you see significant loss of glucose through the urine because the kidneys get overwhelmed. This pulls water with it, causing excessive urination and thirst, similar to insipidus, but the cause is sugar overload, not lack of ADH.
And there's another complication, ketone bodies.
Yes. When cells can't use glucose properly for energy, due to lack of insulin or insulin resistance, the body starts breaking down fats at a high rate. This produces acidic byproducts called ketone bodies, which can build up to toxic levels, a dangerous state called ketoacidosis.
A failure of the fuel system, fundamentally.
Exactly. Fortunately, diabetes mellitus, particularly type 1, where insulin production fails, can be treated successfully with carefully managed insulin therapy. Type 2 often involves lifestyle changes and medications to improve insulin sensitivity or production.
Okay, a complex but vital area. Finally, in this group, let's examine the gonads, the architects of sexual differentiation and reproduction. Testis in males, ovary in females.
Right. Starting with the male gonad, the testis. It's located outside the main body cavity within the scrotal sac, which helps maintain a slightly lower temperature optimal for sperm production.
And which cells produce the hormones?
The endocrine function resides in the Leydig cells, also called interstitial cells, found in the spaces between the sperm-producing tubules. These cells produce a group of hormones called androgens, with testosterone being the principal one.
And what are the functions of testosterone and other androgens?
They have a wide range. They regulate the development, maturation, and function of the male accessory sex organs like the prostate and seminal vesicles. They stimulate the development of male secondary sexual characteristics.
Right.
Muscular growth, deepening of the voice, low pitch, growth of facial and axillary underarm, hair, increased aggressiveness patterns in some cases. They are also absolutely essential for spermatogenesis, working alongside FSH.
And behavior.
Yes, androgens influence male sexual behavior, the libido. Plus, they have general anabolic or building effects on protein and carbohydrate metabolism, contributing to greater muscle mass.
Okay, comprehensive role. Now, the female gonad, the ovary, located in the abdomen.
Yes, one on each side. The ovary produces two main groups of steroid hormones, estrogen and progesterone.
Where do these come from within the ovary?
Estrogen, primarily estradiol, is secreted mainly by the developing ovarian follicles, the structures containing the maturing eggs.
And its functions?
Estrogen stimulates the growth and development of female secondary sex organs like the uterus and fallopian tubes. It drives the appearance of female secondary sex characters, high-pitched voice, characteristic fat distribution, breast development. It's crucial for the development of the growing ovarian follicles themselves and influences female sexual behavior. And it plays a big role in mammary gland development.
Okay. And progesterone?
Progesterone is secreted primarily by the corpus luteum. That's the structure that forms from the remnants of the ovarian follicle after ovulation has occurred.
And its main role is?
Its key role is unequivocally supporting pregnancy. Progesterone prepares the uterus lining for implantation, maintains the pregnancy, and suppresses uterine contractions that might disturb it.
Does it affect mammary glands too?
Yes. Progesterone also acts on the mammary glands, stimulating the formation of alveoli, the tiny sac-like structures that actually store milk, and preparing them for milk secretion after birth. It works synergistically with estrogen here.
So estrogen develops the ducts, progesterone develops the alveoli.
A simplified way to think of it, yes. Both are needed for full breast development and function.
Okay, we have now cataloged the major organized classic endocrine glands. But you mentioned earlier, circling back to that modern definition of a hormone.
Right, the intercellular messenger produced in trace amounts.
That endocrine function is actually much more widely distributed. It's not just these 8 glands.
Exactly. This is where we delve into the really unexpected sophistication, the hormones secreted by specialized cells within tissues that we don't typically classify as organized endocrine glands.
This really validates that idea of the body's regulatory network being incredibly diffuse.
It absolutely does. Let's start, perhaps surprisingly, in the chest with the heart itself.
The heart makes hormones.
Yes. The atrial wall, the wall of the upper chambers of the heart, secretes a peptide hormone called atrial natriuretic factor, or ANF.
Atrial natriuretic factor, what does it do?
Its function is beautifully straightforward and counter-regulatory. It decreases blood pressure. When blood pressure increases, stretching the atrial walls, ANF is released. It causes dilation or widening of the blood vessels. This vasodilation helps to lower the pressure, counteracting hormones like aldosterone or systems that raise blood pressure. It's an immediate vascular safety valve.
Wow. Okay, the heart regulates blood pressure hormonally. Where next?
Let's go to the kidney. We know it responds to hormones like ADH and aldosterone, but it also produces a crucial one. Specialized cells called the juxtaglomerular cells produce erythropoietin, often called EPO.
EPO, I've heard of that in sports doping contests. What's its normal job?
Its normal, vital job is to stimulate erythropoiesis. It travels from the kidney to the bone marrow and signals it to produce more red blood cells.
So the kidney monitors oxygen levels, perhaps, and adjusts red blood cell production accordingly via EPO.
That's exactly the mechanism. Low oxygen levels trigger EPO release, leading to more red blood cells to carry more oxygen.
Brilliant. Okay, heart, kidney, what else?
The gastrointestinal tract. The GI tract is actually a massive endocrine organ. Endocrine cells are scattered all throughout the lining of the stomach and intestines.
And they secrete hormones that regulate digestion locally.
Precisely. The sources highlight 4 major peptide hormones produced here. First, gastrin.
Gastrin, stomach-related.
Yep. It's released mainly from the stomach lining and stimulates the gastric glands to secrete hydrochloric acid, HCl, and pepsinogen, getting digestion started.
Okay. Second?
Secretin. This one acts on the exocrine part of the pancreas, stimulating it to release water and bicarbonate ions into the small intestine.
Why bicarbonate?
To neutralize the acidic chyme coming from the stomach, protecting the intestinal lining, and creating the right pH for pancreatic enzymes to work.
Makes sense. Third.
Cholecystokinin, or CCK. This is a powerful dual-action hormone. It acts on both the pancreas, stimulating the secretion of digestive enzymes, and on the gallbladder, causing it to contract and release bile juice into the intestine.
Bile for fat digestion, enzymes for everything else. CCK coordinates that.
Coordinates it beautifully. And finally, the fourth one mentioned is gastric inhibitory peptide, or GIP.
Does what its name suggests.
Pretty much. It inhibits gastric secretion and motility, essentially putting the brakes on the stomach once food has moved into the small intestine and doesn't need further processing up there. It also stimulates insulin release, anticipating the glucose absorption.
So these GI hormones provide this intricate local coordination of the whole digestive process.
Absolutely vital for efficient digestion and nutrient absorption.
And we shouldn't forget, beyond these specific examples, almost all non-endocrine tissues seem to secrete various growth factors, right?
Yes, that's another layer. These are hormone-like substances, often acting locally, that are essential for normal tissue growth, cell repair, and regeneration throughout the body. It shows that chemical communication for regulation is happening literally everywhere.
Okay, so we've covered where hormones are made, the big glands and the scattered tissues. We've covered what their major actions are. We know where they fit on the body's map. Now for the final, crucial, perhaps more technical piece. How does the message actually get delivered and acted upon at the cellular level? This is the mechanism of action.
Right. How does the hormone actually do its job once it reaches the target tissue? The absolute foundation of all hormonal action is the specificity principle.
Meaning?
Hormones only work because they bind to highly specific protein receptors. These receptors are located only in or on the cells of the target tissues. And crucially, each receptor is tailored, like a lock, to bind only one specific hormone. It's key.
That ensures the right message goes only to the right cells, even though the hormone travels everywhere in the blood.
Precisely. Now, we can categorize these receptors based on their location within the target cell. Broadly, there are two types.
Okay.
You have membrane-bound receptors, which are, as the name suggests, embedded in the surface cell membrane. And you have intracellular receptors, which are located inside the target cell, most often within the nucleus, so they're frequently called nuclear receptors.
And which hormones use which type of receptor depends on the hormone's chemical nature.
Exactly. To understand the two major mechanisms of action, we need to quickly recap the chemical groups of hormones because their solubility dictates the pathway.
Okay, let's list them again briefly.
We have four key groups: the peptide, polypeptide, and protein hormones. This is the largest group, includes insulin, glucagon, all the pituitary hormones, hypothalamic releasing inhibiting hormones, PTH, TCT, oxytocin, ADH, ANF, EPO, the GI hormones.
The vast majority.
Right. 2, the steroids. These are lipids derived from cholesterol, cortisol, aldosterone from the adrenal cortex, and testosterone, estrogen, progesterone from the gonads.
Okay, the fatty ones.
3, the iodothyronines are thyroid hormones, T3 and T4, also lipid-soluble-like. And 4, the amino acid derivative smaller molecules derived from single amino acids like epinephrine, adrenaline from the adrenal medulla.
Got it. So how does solubility link to the receptor location and mechanism?
Here's the crucial distinction. Group 1, the protein and peptide hormones, are generally water-soluble and too large to easily pass through the cell membrane's lipid bilayer.
So they can't get inside the cell?
Correct. They do not enter the target cell. Instead, they bind to those membrane-bound receptors on the cell's exterior surface.
Okay, they knock on the door. Then what?
Since the hormone itself, the first messenger, can't get inside to deliver the instruction, the binding event on the outside triggers a cascade inside the cell. This usually involves the generation of second messengers.
Second messengers?
Yeah.
Like internal relay molecules?
Exactly. Think of the hormone ringing the doorbell. The second messenger is the person inside who hears the bell and runs to carry the message deeper into the house. Common second messengers include cyclic AMP, inositol triphosphate, IP3, or even calcium ions, say A++.
And these second messengers then trigger the actual changes inside the cell.
Yes. These second messengers rapidly diffuse through the cytoplasm and activate or inhibit specific enzymes or proteins, thereby regulating cellular metabolism and carrying out the hormone's command relatively quickly.
So external signal membrane receptor, second messenger cascade cellular response. usually involves changing enzyme activity.
Typically, yes. It leads to fairly rapid shifts in cell function. Now, contrast that with the other major mechanism.
Used by the steroids and thyroid hormones.
That's correct. The steroid hormones, group 2, and the iothyronines, group 3, are lipid-soluble. They are small and fatty, allowing them to easily diffuse across the cell membrane and enter the cytoplasm.
So they just walk right in.
They do. Once inside, they travel to find their specific intracellular receptors. These receptors might be in the cytoplasm or, more commonly, directly within the nucleus.
And they bind to these internal receptors.
Yes, forming a hormone receptor complex. Now, this complex, armed with the hormone's instruction, acts as a transcription factor. It travels to the cell's genome, the DNA blueprint in the nucleus.
It interacts directly with the DNA.
It binds to specific DNA sequences, often called hormone response elements, located near particular genes. This binding directly regulates gene expression, essentially turning specific genes on or off, or modulating their rate of transcription into messenger RNA.
So instead of just flipping an enzyme switch quickly like the second messengers, this mechanism changes which proteins the cell is making.
Precisely. By altering gene expression, the hormone receptor complex changes the very pattern of protein synthesis in the cell. The resulting cumulative biochemical actions from these newly made or not made proteins lead to the ultimate physiological and developmental effects.
Which sounds like a slower, but perhaps more profound and longer-lasting change.
Generally, yes. Effects like growth, differentiation, or long-term metabolic adaptations mediated by steroids or thyroid hormones typically take longer to manifest, hours or days, compared to the often rapid effects mediated by second messengers, but they are often more sustained.
Two fundamentally different ways for hormones to deliver their messages, dictated by whether they can get inside the cell or not.
That's the core distinction. Membrane receptors and second messengers for water-soluble hormones that can't enter. Intracellular receptors, and direct gene regulation for lipid-soluble hormones that can.
What an absolutely astonishing network we've just toured. We started by contrasting that rapid short-term neural control with the slower, more continuous, widespread regulatory power of the endocrine system.
And we really saw how they have to work together, jointly coordinating just about everything: metabolism, growth, stress response, reproduction, fluid balance, maintaining that stable internal environment, homeostasis.
And the complexity just hinges on this delicate balance. We saw so many examples of sophisticated antagonistic pairs, insulin and glucagon, battling over blood glucose.
Thyrocalcitonin and parathyroid hormone regulating calcium levels.
This sympathetic stimulation via adrenaline versus parasympathetic calming. It's all about this precise push and pull.
Essential for keeping everything within the narrow limits required for life, growth, and survival.
And it's mind-boggling that all of it, from setting our basal metabolic rate to shaping our sexual development, is orchestrated ultimately from tiny regions in the brain like the hypothalamus and pituitary.
Filtering down through these specialized glands, and even through diffuse local hormone production in tissues like the gut or the heart, all using these non-nutrient chemical signals, often in incredibly minute trace amounts.
Which brings us perfectly, I think, to our final provocative thought for you, the listener, to consider as you wrap up this deep dive with us. That modern definition we started with. It emphasizes that a hormone is a non-nutrient chemical acting as an intercellular messenger in trace amounts. Now, we've just spent all this time detailing how minute amounts of molecules produced by our internal tissues, like the GI tract hormones or ANF from the heart, can profoundly alter our systemic function.
Right. Tiny amounts. Huge effects internally.
So the question is, what does this suggest about the potential hidden influence of minute external chemical factors on our body's entire, incredibly sensitive regulatory network?
You mean things from outside the body?
Exactly. Perhaps subtle components in our modern diet that aren't traditional nutrients, or trace pollutants accumulating in the environment, or even complex compounds in pharmaceuticals we take for other reasons. Could these act like unintended trace amount intercellular messengers?
If our internal system relies on such tiny chemical signals, it does raise the question of its potential sensitivity or vulnerability to similar trace chemicals coming from the outside. Endocrine disruptors being the classic example, of course.
Precisely. If the difference between health and chronic disease internally can rest on a picogram of a hormone, then the boundaries between our external chemical environment and our internal regulatory chemistry might be far more permeable, far more interactive than we usually imagine.
A sobering thought, definitely. If our own body uses trace non-nutrient chemicals for profound regulation, What are traces of external non-nutrient chemicals doing? Something to definitely mull over or perhaps explore further on your own.
Indeed. Thank you for joining us for this incredibly detailed deep dive into chemical coordination and the endocrine system. We'll see you next time.